Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode number 11 here in the Happy Abode. We are starting out right where we left off the last time. We have just finished getting our production here going, so we have cobalt and steel being produced here, and things are working great. My next big plan that I want to do is taking this oil and setting up a system to refine it into petroleum, but I'm still working on some designs for that. I also need to get some things cleaned up so that we can get to that. So I have some other projects planned for today. We'll probably do that in the next episode. So first things first, when you play through doing an achievement run, you tend to kind of slap things together to get things working so that you can get those first 100 cycles done. And then after that, I was working on getting the Bionic asteroid set up. I'm actually going to change the name of this. In my head, I keep calling this Bionica, and I like the name, so we're going to change it, and that's what it's going to be from now on. So this place is also kind of a mess. It's functional, it's doing well, but it still needs a lot of work. But what I need to do for maybe 50 to 100 cycles is focus on getting some of the things that are in both of these bases to be more than just functional. Make them, instead of just surviving our colonies, we want to be thriving here in our colonies. So the main thing we're going to focus on Bionica, it's not going to get as much love today, is just this gunk extractor. So everything else is sustainable. We have the power is automatically being recycled and powered up. We have our coal supply coming in to keep us powered over here. Everything is doing well as far as that goes, and all their needs are met. But this gunk extractor is set up so that it is pumping into these two reservoirs. I had to put a second one in just to hold the excess, and that's going to back up, and it's going to cause us problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up an overflow. Instead of going into extra reservoirs, I'm just going to vent into space the excess gunk, because I don't have a use for gunk right now. I'm going to keep some in case I think of something that I can use the gunk for, as far as like a liquid, but the only real use for it is to turn it into gear bomb. And now that I have access to oil and I'm using the lubrication station, I don't need that. So we're going to set that up to vent into space, and we'll get that taken care of. On the main asteroid, we have a bunch of things that need to be done. One is just getting some more work on clearing out the rest of the space here so that we have space and all of the resources kind of dug up. I need to get something set up here to clear out all these liquids down at the bottom so that I have access to this magma without having everything in my way. So I'm probably just going to dig some systems to get it over to the side here so we can get it pumped up, and we'll get it put into reservoirs just to get it out of here and clean everything up down here. We also need to finish some things with our base coolant, because right now our loop that is supposed to be for cooling when the base starts overheating, the problem is the base isn't overheating, it's already too cool, and that means our crops aren't running. So right now the output from our bathrooms is getting fed. You can see it going here. It's bypassing the thimble reed, and I have it going as an overflow into our polluted water containers. Problem with that is if this fills up, that pipe will fill up, these bathrooms will back up, and then we are stuck. So I want to get the temperatures in here under control so that our crops are running good. Eventually these crops will be leaving, so it's not vital for our food production, but for the moment it is vital to keeping our base going. So we're going to get that fixed up, and to do that we're going to first reconnect this loop back to our main loop with the geysers, and that's going to allow the heat from this loop, which is currently keeping things over here it's 36 degrees, up here it's 16, up here it's 25. It's going to balance all these out. It'll get somewhere in the 20 degrees, which is a little shy of what I need at first, and so I'll probably use a liquid tepidizer to bring it up just a little bit to get us to the point where we need to be, and that will allow us to get this place warmed up. I also want to encase the place in insulated tiles for the time being. All of this is going to be moving to a new location eventually, but for now I want to get it so that we're getting the temperatures up and they're staying up instead of kind of mixing with the environment around us, where some of it is freezing cold. Then after that, we're going to work on a new system up here. We're going to use this top corner of the map and make a wild pip planted farm, so that we can basically get crops growing without any interaction from our duplicates. We'll have auto sweepers that pull out the food and ship it down to our kitchen, and we won't have to have dupes harvesting the food and bringing resources and using up resources. It will just run all on its own. And what I've decided to do is I want to get out of mealwood, and we're going to go into bristle blossom. So bristle blossoms, the reason for picking them is, if you compare, actually let's look at lice loaf first. Lice loaf is a terrible quality food. We get 1,700 calories from an initial investment of 1,200 calories of meal lice, and so it's not the best food. It got us through a lot of cycles, and it's keeping us alive for the time being. It's supplementing our barbecue, but it's not great. With bristle blossom, we have a couple of things we can do. One is we're going to cook the bristle blossom into we get the bristleberry, and then we're going to cook that into gristleberry. So gristleberry is it's a quality poor, but it's +1, so it's a little higher. We get 2,000 calories from each 1,600 calorie plant, so it's a little bit more from each plant. And later on, we can use the bristleberries to combine with sleet wheat to make berry sludge, which is the food that we're going to use in this playthrough for space, because it's much easier to manage. It never goes off. It's a lot of calories from a small initial investment, and that will be the plan. So the problem with the bristle blossoms is that we need to for a wild planted farm, we don't need to provide them water, but they do need to be in the right light conditions, and they need to be in the right thermal conditions. So we need to set up a farm up here that's wild planted and meets those conditions. So we're going to get some infrastructure set up to do that, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the process we're going to do for creating all those natural tiles. So I had recorded a few clips showing some progress through our repairs, and then I realized while playing them back that my microphone was messed up. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to skip ahead and show you some progress that we just got completed, which I don't really like to do, but it is what it is. It would take me hours to redo the stuff to record it while I'm doing it, so this is the best solution. So I finished the overflow for our gunk extractor. So it's pretty simple. Gunk extractor comes out here. If the bridge has space on the other side, meaning that we've used some of this gunk, it will send it that way. Otherwise, it goes through this pipe, which gets sent up to over here. And I have sent this to a vent that's out in space, and I blocked this all in for good measure, so that we make sure it doesn't overflow. It did a little bit when I first had it there, which is no problem. I still have to put in something so that we can just put gunk back into this system. Let's do that real quick. We'll put in a bottle drainer here, and we'll feed this in like this. We'll put a bridge across, and we will just pipe this on like this. And then once that's built, we can switch that to gunk so that the duplicates can pick gunk up around the map, dump it in here, and it'll get stored either in here if there's space or go to space, just like the gunk extractor. It's no problem. Quick measure for it. When we get to finishing this base properly, we'll put in a proper management for it. But for now, we're just trying to keep things moving so that we can get things going. I also did some automation down here in our industrial block area. This, we put in a conveyor loader, and we can basically, after we have cobalt and steel stored here, these are both a priority 7. This is a priority 6 that has cobalt and steel going into it. So any excess that we make gets put into here, and that feeds from here all the way up to here and gets bridged onto our path going to the other colony, so that the cobalt and steel gets moved to the main colony for use. Eventually we can turn off this and we'll set up the smart storage so that we can shut this off when we have enough. But for now, I just want to keep producing cobalt and steel while we have the raw resources to do it. So that's no problem. I have been watching this industrial block, and it is interesting, the test I'm doing with trying to do it where we just keep everything hot. I think that it's working fine. I don't know that there's any gain to doing it this way rather than just having the loop that is cooling our steam turbines, cooling down the area in here and keeping it at a nice, reasonable temperature. I could also put in a second aqua tuner that is just for the bottom part to make sure we don't overtax the ones cooling the steam, but we have plenty of power from this aqua tuner that we could cool this area off too at the production we're doing. But the main thing is, and I had a comment about this, about how we're heating up the metals and stuff in here. After many cycles, we're up to like 45 degrees on the output. They come out at 40, and they have heated up a little bit. But anything over 45 degrees doesn't matter to me, because we're going to use this iron for building. We'll use the steel and the cobalt for building. And when you build with this stuff, even if it's 200 degrees, if it equalizes with this room and the room is around 200 degrees, the temperature of the building that you make with it is 45 degrees. So the difference between the 40 degrees and the 45 degrees doesn't really matter to me. And you know, this system is just going to leach all the heat off of here and keep everything at the same temperature as this room. Would I do it this way again? I don't know. It's still worth testing some more maybe, but I think that the difference is negligible. Let's go back to our main asteroid so we can see the things we've gotten done over here. I have encased the building in insulated tiles. I have our loop going through. It's now going through pretty hot. Let me check and see. I think I did turn this off now. Yes, I turned it so that the temporizer won't go on unless we are below minus 271 degrees, which can't happen. But that way, if we want, we can turn it back on. I'm not going to deconstruct it yet. But basically, we heated up the water in here, so we got it to the point where it was enough to warm the base up like I wanted. So now our crops are doing okay. They might actually be a little warm, so we have to watch that. But it should now, and it is. You can see that it is. That door just closed. The loop's coming through a little hot, so it is cooling it back down. So it'll equalize out, and we can adjust that to get the temperature where we want. These crops are not growing anymore, but now it's because we don't have any polluted water going into them. As soon as they receive polluted water from our bathroom, they will grow and get rid of it and turn it into reed fiber so we can stockpile reed fiber for fixing Atmos suits. Exactly how we want. So that part's all done. The room itself is insulated, so the heat is building up in here how we want it to. Like I said, that cooling loop will do its job and eventually equalize everything out in here. It's a little hot because we just finished running a hot loop through just to bring it up to temp to get things running, but it will balance everything out. I also put in the storage up here for all of those liquids at the bottom of the map. You can see there's some broken pipes and stuff because there's a lot of cold liquids here interacting. It's no problem. If anything breaks in here and then we have liquids, it just runs off the edge back down to the bottom, which is fine for now. We still have a lot to get processed out, but once we get a little more done through here and we get to a more reasonable space with the hydrogen and the oxygen, we'll be breaking into here to do some repairs or maybe move this section, and then we'll start processing water into oxygen and hydrogen again. That'll pull all this backlog, and it will allow us to start dumping some of this into the filters and get all this liquid used up. There's still a lot of storage space for us to put liquid in here, but not quite. We're not quite done with that yet. Still a lot of cleanup to do, still a lot of things to do, but we did get rid of most of our hatches. We're down now. We're just doing one ranch with 7 critters in it, just so we can keep up with it, but that freed up a lot of duplicate labor. Oh, the body temperature on our mealwood is too high. Okay, maybe I did adjust this too much. I think what I could do now, since the loop is where I want it to be, let's take this and return it back to being connected like that and that. And now that means this loop can cool back down much quicker using the coolant in here. And that should stabilize pretty quickly to get our mealwood growing. We don't need this much longer, but we do need it for a little while. We have a couple 100,000 food stored up, which will keep us going for a while, but not forever. So we need to get this going. So we'll let that go and get that fixed while we are working up here. Up here, we have built this massive space. And the only thing you missed while I was building this is me kind of derping around. I built the whole thing, and I built it so that there was just 3 blocks in between each row, because that's all I needed. Bristle blossoms are 2 blocks tall. Automation can fit in 1 row. Problem is when I'm doing pit planting, they have to be at least 4 blocks apart. And that's because if I'm going to plant a tile here, it's going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this tile is going to be our natural tile, and so it'll be fine. If it was up 1 higher, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and it would count the plants above, meaning these plants would never get planted by pit. Which is fine. We had to rebuild some of it, but now we have it done. Each row of these here has 34 spaces, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 rows. So when we're done, we're going to have 204 spots to plant in here. I needed 180 to sustain my 15 duplicates, and you know, it's always good to have a little extra. So this method that we're going to use to make natural tiles, I'm going to pause it here so that we can walk through it slowly, is one that I just read on Reddit. Oops, somebody's trapped. Somebody always manages to trap themselves when I'm working on things. Get them fixed up, but while I describe this. The method I'm doing here is one I just found on Reddit. It's a pretty new thing. I haven't seen it before. The person who put it up, I think the name was Ximera. It's Ximera. I will link the post to be sure. That way you can read their write-up on it. It's very simple, and the write-up that they give is really, really easy to understand. And so basically what happens here is we have a loop that is going to go through our farm, and we're going to fill this with glass, and then when we take the glass out of the pipes, it's going to turn into glass tiles. And I'm going to get it so that we can run the glass through, and then we can step through it together so you can see the process, because it's a lot easier to explain while we're doing it. All right, we have glass flowing through here, and we're just waiting for it to get the entire way through the farm, and then I'm going to go through and explain exactly how this works to you. The simplicity of this is the fact that the glass forge is running through this liquid valve that breaks it into 50-gram segments of glass, which is a nice small amount, but large enough that we can do what we want with it. And we're going to pause right here, and what we're going to do is we're going to disconnect our glass lines here and here. So that means down here in the pipe, we have glass that is just frozen in place at these spots. Because they're such small segments, they're not going to do anything in the pipes. They're just going to sit there and do the thing. So I did pull up the post just so that I could take a look at it and show you what the post. It was Xyrema, not Ximera. Sorry about that. But this post was just a few days ago, and they have a really detailed description of how to do this, as well as a little video showing how it works. And I wanted to point that out. I'll put a link to it in the description. But this is a really neat idea, and it's really beautiful in its simplicity. So we have a glass forge that makes 1 run of glass, just 1 run, goes through the liquid valve, breaks it into 50-milligram segments. That gives us 500 spots where it's going to fill in the pipe with those 50-gram segments. Once we have that, what we need to do, and I need to set up some people to do it. I did research. The Ari has an affinity for plumbing, and so does who was that? Rowan has an affinity for plumbing. So we're going to make them both plumbers. It's going to overtax their morale, which we'll have to fix later. But it'll be good for now. So we'll make them both plumbers. Tempted to change their names to Mario and Luigi, just because they're the only 2 duplicates I have that really like plumbing. But once we have them set up to do that, we can grab our empty pipe tool, and because these pipes have liquid in it that is not moving, when I queue up to empty the pipes on these spots, they're going to come up here and they're going to empty the glass right onto the tile below, and that's going to instantly turn into a natural tile of glass with 50 grams of glass in it. So let's just do this row. I'm going to go on double speed so I can see them come up here to get this done, and we can see it in action. We're going to have a little bit of pipe breakage from some of the glass sitting around in here because it has nowhere to go, because it pools into slightly larger ones. What I should have done before I disconnected it is connected it here so that all that glass could work its way right out. It's no big deal. A little bit of lost glass, a little bit of cracked pipes, not a big problem at all. So they're going to come up here, they're going to empty the pipes, so they're going to create tiles. Once those tiles are made, the nice thing is we're not going to have any buried objects in them because there's no debris or anything here. Let me look and make sure I don't have any. Ooh, right here there's a piece of debris. We need to sweep this at a high priority to get it out of there, because if I empty that pipe onto there, it's going to turn that abyssalate into debris. And the debris in there is not going to cause any problems, but it's not going to look great, and that's going to bug me. So we see here Rowan has made his way up, he emptied it out, and we have a glass tile here. It's 50 grams, and we can plant in that. It should work great. And it's so simple. Once we're done, all we'll do is take the pipes, we'll reconnect them back to the system, we'll run it out the drain, turn the excess glass that we have in the pipes back into glass, and then we'll have tiles here that have a small amount of material, so we didn't use a lot, but it's large enough that we can do some thermal exchange, and then the pipes are going to be inside the tiles. We can just run our coolant right through it, and that will keep our temperatures in here regulated. And then we can have pips come up and wild plant in these tiles so that we can create a farm in the most simple fashion I've ever seen. So this is a lot better of a method than many of the other natural tile methods I have personally seen. I know a lot of people just like to use the mod to place down natural tiles, which is an acceptable way to do it, but I like having multiple ways to do it, and I like having ways to do it without using a mod, which is great. So I'm going to have them go through. They're going to go through and turn all of these spaces into natural tiles, and then we will work on the next steps to get this farm producing some food. I went to move a pip up to our farm and realized that at some point I had removed a tile here and not replaced it. So our duplicates haven't been able to get in here, and that's why our pip population is down to just a couple. I didn't notice it at all, and that is unfortunate because that I had a bit of an issue where people were making a mess and I didn't clean up over here. Gotta fix that. The pips were the population had almost dwindled because even though they have enough food, they don't get groomed. They don't produce enough eggs to sustain themselves. I guess maybe they would produce just one each time and they would keep the population up, possibly, but anyway, I fixed that. They're in here. These guys are getting groomed now, so they're producing eggs 17% per cycle, so 2 more cycles we'll have an egg, and we'll at least keep the pip population growing. Now, up here, I have moved a pip in. Our plumbers are still doing their work creating the natural tiles, but on this top row, I have put ladders over all these spaces where I do not want them planting, and they have planted our first bristle blossom. This is gonna be a long-term process getting this whole thing done because I only have like 43 blossom seeds. So we're gonna have to keep growing these in order to get to the point where we have enough blossoms or seeds to fill the whole farm. But we can get slowly transitioned over. The next thing we need to do to get it working, though, is to worry about ceiling lights. And I'm going to go with the blossom ceiling lights just because it fits for the farm. And we need to have light that covers each of the tiles where we're going to be planting. So looks like if I put it right here, that one is going to cover these 3, which means I need to put one of these basically every like third plant, so that each one will cover 3 of them. So if I put one, it's there. Okay, so now that I have a couple, I can just copy it with this, and then I can line it up and place them. Oh, if I do that, it's going to place the wrong ones. I'm going to have to do it manually. That's okay. It's not that big of a deal, but I do like some aesthetics here and there, just to make things a little nicer. So we do skip 2, place 1, 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 and we're gonna have to have 1 on the end just to get that one a little extra. And then we're gonna have to run a power line, and that will go up this way and come down to each of these. We'll get 1 row of this farm up and running, and then once we're done with that, we can get more seeds and work on the next row. We need to plant each row independently anyway. I guess we could have more than 1 pip running, because they could come down and this one could plant regardless of what's planted above, but we only have enough seeds to finish 1 row at the moment anyway, so we'll get this working, we'll get the pip planting, and we'll see how that goes. I'm concerned about the pip it being too far away because of how long this is, so I might need to actually put in fact, let's do that right now. I'm going to put a door here. Actually, we can't do it there. Let's do it here and put a tile here. We'll move the pip into this room, and then we'll slowly break this down into more manageable chunks so the pip doesn't have to be farming or planting in such a large area at once. But we can see that the natural tiles made out of glass do work because we were able to plant this one here. If we get the illumination up and running here, we should see it starting to grow because everything else here is okay at the moment. Actually, the body temperature might be a little bit too low. So while they're finishing that, let's work on what we're going to do for our solution for body temperature. So the body temperature needs to be between 5 and 30. Fortunately, I have a loop here. It's currently at 40 degrees, but when it combines with the brine coming out of these, when these are active... Oh, these just went dormant. That's going to be an issue because we heated this up too much. I think if we put it up through here, it'll pick up some of the cold and it'll do that. And we'll be combining some cold liquid into it. It should work out. But what we're going to do is after the liquid tiles here are all finished with our plumbers, we're going to drain that pipe out that goes through. And right here you can see there's a spot where the pipes kind of merge. I'm going to run them down and I'm going to connect them to this loop so that this loop is going to stabilize the temperatures in these water pools. It should end up right around the 20-degree mark because these are going to be, this is going to be minus 10 pulling it down, and this is going to be minus 10 pulling it down, but this is a much larger pool at 110. I think when I tested it, they average in the 20-degree range somewhere, which is where we need it for up here, and so that loop will just go through here and keep the farm at a temperature where the crops can grow, and that loop will just run forever. We still have a lot more to do with getting this farm set up to be finished, but most of these bristle blossoms are actually growing now. Temperature's pretty good. We have a couple of cold spots like this one, and we'll get that fixed up. But the tedious part is, if you've ever done this planting, is you have to plant them one at a time because of the pit planting rules. If I were to just take them all apart, they would plant out of order, and then some of the plants wouldn't plant. So we're moving across this way one at a time, and we're getting it planted. But we already have this one section almost done. Pip is going to plant here next. If we look at his navigation, you can see he can only get to this room. So eventually he'll see the seed and he'll plant it in here. Then we'll remove the next ladder and so forth. Once we do that, we're going to set all of these to auto harvest, or enable harvest. That way our duplicates will come up here and harvest them. It'll increase the chance that we'll get seeds. And then as we get more seeds, we'll continue the process down below. I've laid out the auto sweepers so that they can cover all the plants. And then I have to work in getting conveyor loaders in as well. And we'll run a line so we can ship all the product down to our food farm. And once we have it all figured out on this first row, I'll just copy that to each of the rows below and make it so that they are all functional. And we can expand this farm until it's full, and then we'll just seal it up. We don't have any use for anybody to go in there. We can go in and we can just keep things going. You can see the pip picked up a seed and is now planting that one, so I can queue up this ladder for destruction. So it's a little bit tedious just watching, micromanaging it to get the pip to plant where you need it to plant. But once you're done, you have infinite food forever from the farm. So it's well worth all that effort. The other thing I'm going to do here is I finished running these lines, so I'm going to connect this line here. Let's make sure I have this right. Actually, before I do that, put that back up. I need to remove this pipe bridge here and this bridge here. Oh, actually, no. We need to connect this so that it can drain before we take this bridge off. So all we're doing is that glass that was in here. Now that we're done with it, we're going to connect it here. It'll go to the drain. All that glass will make its way down here to the bottom. It'll just turn into glass and add to this pile here, 50 grams at a time. And once that's done, we can remove this bridge and we can connect. Actually, I think I could connect like this right now and remove the bridge while we're waiting. Oh, actually, I've removed the... If I have it looped like that, they're going to end up stacking. They might break. But we can get this bridge out of the way. And then once this line is empty and there's no glass in it, then we can connect onto our system here and start running this coolant through. So it'll go up from here, it'll come through here, it'll go up this way, circle through all the crops, and it'll come down and go back in. And it should stabilize the temperature exactly how we want it to. All right, I disconnected that, so now we need to reconnect it like that. And so I'm going to drain all this out. We'll get that connected, and I'm going to just slowly get our pip to plant everything. Okay, he finished this room. So let's move him to this room, and then we're going to move these blossom seeds in there as well. Set that to high priority so we can get it done right away. And then we'll be able to start growing food. So these are going to grow. They're going to give us bristle blossoms or bristle berries. And we'll be able to use that bristleberry for now in our kitchen. Down here, we'll make bristleberry, which we already have queued up. And one other thing I need to do before I forget, because I know I will forget, make this one red or bristleberry. We need to put in a fridge. And we can power it because it's not going to draw a lot of power. And in this fridge, we're going to put in the bristleberry that we're going to cook up, and we're going to set it to just 1 kilogram for now, and then that'll should get put in there, and then it'll get restocked just like the barbecue and the other foods do here. So barbecue goes in there, lice loaf here. So now we'll have bristleberry. So we want to make it so that the bristleberry doesn't get put back in here, because if we do, then it'll just create a loop. Cool. So now we have bristleberry here because we had some in here, and that'll give them that as a food option, and we'll start using that when we have it. So let's check out our loop, make sure this is done. Just slowly moving out. So I'll get this finished, I'll get the loop going, and then hopefully by the time we start our next episode, I will have this entire farm planted, at least the first row, and we can close it up, and we'll just work our way down slowly over the next several cycles as we work out getting all of these plants planted. For now, I'm going to call it a day. That's quite a bit of progress we made. A lot of stuff tidying up around the bases, making things a little more sustainable, and getting our food sorted out. So I'm pretty happy with that. Hopefully in the next episode, I'll have my plans for the refinery done. But as we get farther into the Oxygen Not Included series, it gets longer and longer between episodes because it takes me a while to plan everything. There's a lot of designs I have to do, and each episode takes, probably 20 hours of planning and designing and actually playing through to make. So, definitely, we will have the series continuing. It's not going to, I'm going to definitely finish it, but it's going to be, we'll need to be patient for episodes coming out because I'd rather have a good episode than a quick episode. But anyway, let's call it a day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.